Alright, well, it's been a while since we did a top 10. Hey everyone, welcome back to Andrew's Wizardly Reads. It's been a while since we did a top 10, and that means it's time for the quarterly check-in for the third quarter of the year. Before we get into that, please do me a favor, like this video, and subscribe to the channel, as it does help the channel grow. You can check the description box down below for links to all my social media, including links to the Patreon, the Discord, my Pango books. All of that is there for you to explore. And let me tell you what, I had a very interesting third quarter. There was a lot of great reads. And in fact, I've got some that, like, normally I don't do repeat authors. I made an exception this time. And we're going to start off with the two that I don't physically own. We're just going to dive right on into this. This is Davis Ashura's Testament of Seal. This is book one of this particular series. However, there are multiple series set within this world, and this is kind of the start of like a new timeline, and it gives very, very heavy Wheel of Time vibes, which, if you know the history of the channel, I started out as a Wheel of Time fan, and that just gave me shivers down my spine, and it was done so incredibly well. I love Cinder Shade, the main character in this story. We've got a battle school, we've got coming of age, we've just got this earnest individual who has woken up with amnesia, and his body slowly starts kind of repairing itself, and he becomes stronger, he becomes faster, he learns how to use magic. It's fantastic. What I mean by, like, it repairs itself is he has a clubfoot at the beginning of the story, and like by a third of the way in, that's not an issue anymore. It's such a good story. We've got elves, we've got dwarves, we've got sword fighting, we've just got everything that a fantasy nerd could want here, and I just absolutely love it. Next up, we've got Primal Hunter, and this is a lit RPG book by Zogarth. And I know I haven't quite returned to this series yet, but I am wanting to return, which is another reason why it's on this list, is kind of give me that push to come back and kind of go on more adventures with Jake. I love Jake, the main character. He's this loner who kind of performs alchemy throughout the story, or bow and arrow, hunting skills. He's kind of like this rogue ranger. I just really love this story. Essentially, it's just he's in the office elevator when all of a sudden, boom, he enters into this tutorial with all of his office mates. And they have to kind of get thrust into this surprise wilderness and choose classes and things of that nature. It's really, really good. The first 10% is a hair rocky, but I mean, once we get like past Jake and Jacob, because there's two people with that name, and we get Jake more so on his own, this story just takes off. It's got like higher gods, it's got all sorts of lore to explore, and there's like 10 or 11 books out at this point, and I cannot wait to dive into that. So those are the first two that I don't physically own. And then we've got the stack that I do own. We're going to save these two for last because, spoiler alert, those are probably one of my book of the quarter. But we've got Long After Midnight by Ray Bradbury. And it's funny, this is The Nightmare. The front cover is called a painting called The Nightmare from, I think, 1781. Let me just confirm that on the back. 1781. Yes, you can tell I've definitely looked at that information before. But essentially, this is a short story collection from Bradbury, and I love Bradbury in short story format. He is so incredibly good. I know there's another edition of this one where it's got like an alternate cover art, and I may look into getting that one. I think it's from PS Publishing. Anyway, I digress. One of my favorite stories from here is The Utterly Perfect Murder. It is beyond good. It's literally a murder. We're going to air quotes murder, but it's like a perfect crime, and it absolutely stunned me. I love that story. We've got, I don't want to talk too much about these, but like the Pumpernickel. I remember listening to the Pumpernickel going, this is absurd, and yet it works. This is a great collection that you could listen to during fall, and I highly recommend you do so because, you know, October Country gets talked about a whole lot, but this one, not so much. Very, very good. I really, really enjoyed this one. We're going to stick that over there. And then if you had told me that I was going to include Stephen King's Finders Keepers, which is book 2 of the Bill Hodges trilogy, on a top 10 list, and you told me that at the beginning of the year, I'd have laughed at you. Because initially I got like 25 to 30% into this, and I was just like, it's so predictable, and I put it back on the shelf. And then I hit a rut, and I picked it back up again. And I had a completely different reading experience, so ignore past me. He clearly had no idea what he's talking about. He probably still doesn't. Current me doesn't know what I'm talking about. Not past me. Anyway, I don't know why I'm ribbing on myself. I should probably stop doing that. Because this is a top 10 list and I'm recommending books to you and therefore I should know what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm digressing. Anyway, Finders Keepers. Very good. Book 2 of the Bill Hodges trilogy. True crime thriller. We've got... I wouldn't call this a Bill Hodges book. Bill Hodges is a character in it, but he doesn't even show up till I'm like 40% in. And then even then... the story kind of floats along without Bill. I think Bill is more in this book to set up book 3. But, I mean, we've basically got 2 different storylines. We've got somebody who becomes obsessed with this author who created a character called Johnny Gold. And then that author retires from public life in the 70s. And we've got this individual who breaks into his house, steals his unpublished works, and robs his kind of safe, and then kills him, and then gets arrested for a different crime and gets put away for 40 to 50 years. And then we've got this young boy in modern day, 2008, I'm going to air quotes modern because this book is a little bit older, who basically finds those journals that were stashed away and uses that money to support his family during hard times. We've got the Mercedes incident that happened in book 1. This boy's father was affected by that incident, and so he uses the money and then also falls in love with these journals. And then we have these 2 kind of people clash together. It's very, very good, and it's incredibly thrilling. I loved this book. And then again, I would have thought you were nuts if you had said, hey, Andrew, you're going to get back into, like, hard crime thrillers. Like, no, I'm not. I'm the fantasy guy. Well, we've got J.D. Barker's The Fourth Monkey. This is book 1 in the 4MK trilogy, or the 4 Monkey Killer trilogy. See no evil, do no evil. See no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil, do no evil. Those are the 4 monkeys. It's kind of that whole mantra. And I've probably gotten those out of order. Anyway, this is very, very good. Essentially, we've got a standard modern day serial killer style of story where we've got this killer who's been active for 4 years, and then he nabs a victim and then supposedly dies. And now the police are in a mad scramble to try and find his last victim before she expires from dehydration or anything like that. And then also the killer left a journal on his body when he gets hit by a bus at the beginning of the book. And this journal chronicles back his life, where it's kind of like this young story of him, or this story of young him, is what I'm trying to say. And it's like Leave It to Beaver meets Silence of the Lambs. Like, his dad's like, gee, sport, like, let's go out and go fishing. And then alternatively, it's like, hey, here's how you dismember and dispose of a body. Are you listening, sport? And it's like, oh gosh, like his parents were killers as well. Crazy. And it's just this mad mashup that just works. It's incredibly gripping. I read this in 2 sittings. Very good. And then we've got The Crimes of Rooker Flynn by A.R. Witham. This is returning to Keymark. I pestered the author to write this story, and I'm so glad that I did. This is really, really good, but a very kind of darker shift into Keymark. Don't get me wrong, Blackjack had some of its darker moments, but this fully embraces some of that darkness while maintaining some of the levity and the lightness and the sarcasm and the wit that AR brings to his stories. Very, very good. We're essentially following Rooker Flynn on the island of the Institute. He's been captured and basically thrown into this penal colony that is also alternatively being run as kind of like a boarding school, but it's definitely a concentration camp / penal colony by Gerba Whitmarple. And it's such an interesting tale. Jack makes a return here. They get up to their antics. There's a lot of wit. There's a lot of spiders, and it's well worth a read. And the audiobook is narrated by the man himself. Definitely do yourself a favor and check this one out. if you liked The Legend of Black Jack, which I did a video review for, and I've interviewed the author. I will link those in the description box down below if you want to check them out. And then, again, something I didn't think I was going to like. Maybe my tastes are changing. It's entirely possible. We've got Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. And I thought, like, from everybody who was talking about this book, like, 3 years ago, I was like, there's no way it's a vampire book. It's not going to be for me. It's going to have a bunch of nudity and a bunch of bleh, bleh, kissy times. Like, bleh. It's just going to have all that stuff, and it's going to be sweary, and I'm not going to like it. This is just dark fantasy that reminded me very much of Bloodsong by Anthony Ryan. This was really, really good. I loved this story. And in fact, like, it's got 2 different timelines. We've got young Gabe, who is being raised and trained as a Silver Saint, which is essentially vampires / monster hunters. And then we've got modern day Gabe, like 16 years later. He's much more jaded, and he's being interrogated after being captured. This was phenomenal. And again, I just want to give a huge shout out to my patron Ryan for helping me acquire these editions, because they are gorgeous. Thank you so much, Ryan. You are the best. And then, of course, I'm going to talk about Andrew Rowe, and we've got right here Soulbrand. This is book number 3 in Weapons and Wielders, and Weapons and Wielders has been such a delight. I love following Karis. He's so cool. Getting to kind of learn more about the 6 sacred swords, fantastic. And this just felt like a huge payoff to Diamantine, and I can see where we're going to be going in Weapons and Wielders. Like, I've always pictured Weapons and Wielders as being like a 6-book series, so I would see this as like the halfway part, and where this ends is just so phenomenal. I can't wait to get more Dawn, Rhaegar, Karis, all of them. They're fantastic characters. This is entertaining, it's lighthearted, it's sarcastic, it's got great combat, great characterization, great magic, what have you. It's all there. I highly recommend checking out Andrew Rowe's works. I love this man's writing. Very, very good. And then we got the final 2, and they're from the same author. We've got 2 Joe Hill books. We've got Joe Hill's Horns, and we've got 20th Century Ghosts. 20th Century Ghosts, this is just a banger of a collection. It's got some books that are kind of on the spookier side, but they're not necessarily horror stories, but like The Black Phone, phenomenal. Pop art, phenomenal. Voluntary Committal, phenomenal. Just banger after banger after banger. Best New Horror, which opens up the story, or opens up the book, really, really good. There's one in here that's like Deadwood, that's like a page and a half. I could take or leave. Other than that, this was fantastic, and it catapulted me into just basically reading one Joe Hill entry a month until I'm caught up. And right now I'm currently reading The Firemen, and I'm having a great time. And then after this, I read this, which is my book of the quarter. In fact, I loved both of these books so much that I bought special editions of both of these. This is Joe Hill's Horns. We follow I believe it's Parrish? Is that his last name? Ignatius Parrish. Yep, Parrish. Ig basically wakes up after a bender on the anniversary of when his girlfriend was brutally murdered, and he has been blamed for it. And he has attested his innocence for over a year, even though everybody thinks he did it. And then one day he just wakes up and he's got these horns. And these horns, people start kind of like confessing their like deepest, darkest secrets to them. And it also gives him some influence over them. And so he starts to use these powers throughout this book to kind of investigate, figure out what happened to his girlfriend, and kind of get some justice for her. And then at the same time, we've got plenty of coming of age flashbacks on how him and his girlfriend and his best friend kind of all came together in the, like 10 years prior to the story. It's very, very good. It's darker, and there is a lot of trigger warnings in here, but at the same time, like, this book just absolutely blew me away. This is my book of the quarter. I loved this story. But that, guys, is my top 10 of Q3. Please let me know in the comments what your top books of the last 3 months were, and we'll have a good old discussion in the comments down below. But that's all I've really got for today, guys. I hope you're doing well. Till next time, peace out, stay magical, bye. And as always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons. Thank you for supporting my passion and my hobby. It means the world to me.